As a manga reader of Taizai, I have to admit, I was pretty disappointed with that final segment of the latest episode when Escanor arrived in. There was so many things that I felt the anime could have done better. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't expect an anime to be perfect. I don't. Nothing is perfect. But at the very least, I expected just so much from an iconic scene from the manga that many were looking forward to, myself included. Not just because I'm an Escanor fan, just because in the manga, there was just so much tension and hype with the scene where Escanor walks up to Estarossa that we're like, holy crap, what's gonna happen? Because everything that was established already throughout Taizai, at least with Season 2, and in the manga at this point, you're like, Estarossa is insane. This man's insanely strong. He's, constantly proven that, he is OP. And then, it was even stated that, Escanor might have been even stronger than Estarossa a couple episodes back when he was fighting, the previous giant and fairy king. So, there was a lot of hype with this, segment when it finally did happen. And in the manga, the artwork and all that, it looked very impressive, and the dialogue just was menacing. And I know for a fact a lot of the issues maybe with this episode some might have had could have been down to the bad translations. Because remember, this is a fan translation. It isn't officially being translated by anyone because, you know how Netflix is. But I'm not blaming the translations, actually. That's not really my problem I have with this episode. My major problem is the fact that there was just some things from the scene that was completely cut. For instance, you were supposed to have a scene to where, people were questioning Bond, you're still alive. And then, Derriere and Mom was supposed to be there and all that, looking at, at Escanor. And then also Esterossa's face when, he looked at, Escanor, instead of that shocked look that he had like a very serious expression to where he just didn't give a crap at all. And that was a very surprising and shocking moment for manga readers because Escanor has always terrified everybody, and everybody's kind of seen his strength. And so, seeing someone like Estarossa not giving a crap, just looking very menacing, like a blank expression, it made the fight really hype, because you're like, what's gonna happen between these two? And then also the dialogue, too. Escanor coming in and it's like, I do not hate those that are beneath me. I do not hate those that are weaker than me. I only feel pity. And then the man was supposed to say, Estarossa was saying, like, holy crap, like, what insolent pride. And he's like, well, that is my sin. He never name-dropped himself. Just FYI, in the manga, Escanor never name-dropped himself for a very obvious reason that happens later on in the next episode. So that was definitely a problem. Now, honestly, I would have to rewatch the scene to see if actually Escanor does say his name or not. But if he doesn't, we could chalk that up to, translation issues. But the big point is that the way the entire Escanor scene was done, it was incredibly disappointing. It fell flat to me. I know anime-onlys might enjoy that scene, but there's just so much I felt could have been done a lot better with the camera work and all of that, I don't know. But okay, so with that out of the way, though, let's talk about the real important stuff with, this episode, and that is finding out more about Meliodas and kind of giving some clarity to what he's been thinking since the very beginning of the series. Now, Meliodas, our MC, he's a mystery. He's always been a mysterious character. Ever since his introduction, it's always been shown that he knows something. He knows more about the greater scheme of things, but he's never really revealed his entire hand. He's never revealed his intentions. And it's always been implied that he was incredibly strong, and he had this hidden power, which he got in, this arc, or this season, he unlocked his true power. But the big point was, it's always been shown that Meliodas has known something. There's something that he's always kept hidden he did not want to talk about. And this, episode tries to clarify who Meliodas is, or what he was fighting for the entire time. Now, it didn't answer everything. There's still a lot of questions that need to be answered, but a lot of things were kind of brought up and mentioned. For instance, why Meliodas has this attachment to Elizabeth. Now, it wasn't clarified whatsoever. But it is shown that at a very early age, for instance, soon as the events of Danafor, when Liz died and all that, what happened to Fraudrin, Meliodas carried a baby Elizabeth outside of Danafor, and then as he encountered, the knights and the king and all that, and he encountered, let's say Zaratras, he's like, don't touch my woman. Now, this entire line, I want to be honest with you, that is a proper translation, okay? As a manga reader that read the manga chapter when it came out, when Meliodas says, don't touch my woman, that actually was in the manga. Now, I know many are going to say, whoa, this is some creepy stuff and all that, him saying that about a little girl, but, you can kind of put point A and point B together. That's already been been implied and established already throughout Taizai Season 2 that Elizabeth is pretty much the reincarnation of Liz in some way, shape, or form. You don't know the details, but it's very apparent. And so with him saying that, even though it is creepy, it does make sense, because if you had this person that you've loved, obviously, you know, if they died, you'd still look at them as your woman, and he was just basically protecting her for the most part, which is why he was very protective of her in the flashback. He was watching over her to make sure she was okay. And it was shown that Meliodas was watching over Elizabeth since she was a little kid. And the only reason why he joined and made the 7 deadly sins in the first place was to protect Elizabeth and watch over her because he cared about her deeply. So that does give some context to Meliodas' character and how he arrived in this kingdom and why he was helping him out in the first place. But it's not just that as well. Merlin also pops up, and it's very apparent that she has a very old connection with Meliodas, because she just comes out of nowhere and starts talking to the man, and, you know, it was like hinted at that basically they have a, you know, history with each other. Something very important. Merlin might know the truth about Meliodas that nobody else does. But here's the thing, though. Meliodas also, when he gets very drunk and he's talking to Zaratras, he says something that leaves many probably puzzled. Many anime-onlys are going to be puzzled. He says he's cursed. Now, we don't know exactly what he means by this. For all we know, it could be the 10 Commandments. For instance, the Commandments, they're technically curses if you don't do what, you know, if you go against the Commandments, obviously you're under the effects of them, so he could be talking about, you know, Commandments. But whatever the case may be, whatever curse, he does say that he has tried to die, but it doesn't really work. And when we can see how later in the episode he's in purgatory and he's fighting his father, the DK, which is pretty insane. I have to say, as a manga reader, hearing DK's voice for the first time, I'd say it fits. It's definitely a fitting voice actor for him. He had this ominous feel. I mean, for the most part, that entire DK scene with Meliodas is more of exposition than anything else, kind of letting us know that every time Meliodas dies, his emotions are getting stripped away, and the DK is slowly, you know, using those to make Meliodas into, like, this husk that is just completely heartless. And so, he does come back, apparently, but when he does, he just loses more and more of himself. So that's what was established with the exposition from the DK in this episode. But anyways, Meliodas also says that, like, he's tried to kill himself multiple times, which is pretty jarring, because at the end of the day, this is a shonen, and it shows that there's something very dark and sad about Meliodas' past, for him to say he's tried to die, but he couldn't. So that makes you wonder what the hell is going on with Meliodas and all that. Now, I know many are going to be a little bit upset, anime only is going to be upset, that, like, Meliodas got killed, but now he's coming back. Isn't it too soon? And I'll be honest with you, I felt the exact same way when I was reading the chapters. I felt like Meliodas, even if we knew he was going to come back in some way, I was hoping that he would stay away for a good long while and not come back like that. And I know many are probably very concerned about this. That was definitely my concern when I read these chapters, because I was like, okay, we know he's going to come back, but at the very least keep him away for a while, because it would be good for this series to allow the characters to have more focus and to see what's going on with them. And so I know that's many of the concerns that probably people are going to have after watching this episode, and don't worry, I had the exact same concern when I read the manga for the first time as well, so do not worry, I hear you loud and clear. We got to see Purgatory for the first time, and I didn't expect it to look all purpley. That was not my impressions of Purgatory. I don't know, granted, it is established that the demon flames and stuff that we have seen is kind of purple, so it would make sense that that's kind of where, you know, Meliodas' father is, so yeah, it makes sense, but I don't know, just my impressions of Purgatory, I always thought it was like this darkness, like, you know, black color, blackish white or something, but yeah, I mean, looks can be deceiving. One thing to get into, though, let's talk about Zaratras for a second. So Zaratras is a character that has been behind the scenes for a very long time. He was what kind of initiated the story of Taizai. If it wasn't for Zaratras' character, him dying, the main conflict throughout the first half of Taizai would not have happened. For instance, Hindi and Dreyfus, you know, betraying the kingdom and, you know, framing the 7 deadly sins. That plot point would have never have happened if it wasn't for Zaratras' death. And so for the first time, we get to see Zaratras' character and kind of who he is and how he was before he died. And when you see his personality in this episode, Hawk's reaction to, like, imposter is pretty much how many felt, or many anime-onlys are going to feel when they see his character for the first time. They're like, this is not what I expected whatsoever from the Great Holy Knight that, you know, the demons had to get rid of. You know, what Fraudron had to get rid of because he was, you know, very threatening to them, which makes a lot of sense. But at the same time, though, just when you see his personality, you're like, what? This is really Zaratras, this character that was killed and all that, and how he died, and like how he ate a pie and that's how he died. That's pretty much the funniest part about it, because this man, he ain't angry, like, he's not angry with, Hindi or Dreyfus. He's mainly angry with the fact that he ate this pie, he fell for their trap, but also he didn't notice that they were under the effects of a demon, and that's why he's really upset, which is why he's still alive to this day. So to kind of clarify, Scylla, as you know, she can bring back the dead because of regrets. Zaratras's regret isn't because he wants to exact revenge against Hindi or Dreyfus/Fraudrin. He actually just wants to settle the matter to where, they are freed from, the demon's control and they can live on in peace. And that's what he wants. And that's the final thing he wants before he leaves. Remember in the last episode review, I talked about Elaine and how it stated that she disappeared and nobody knew where she went? I said that was a plot hole. It was a very apparent plot hole in the story. And with this episode, with Zaratras still being there, Elaine missing is a major plot hole. Like, she's supposed to be there, because we now know that Scylla is technically still alive. Because, I mean, for Zaratras to be there, that means that Scylla is alive. And so, yeah, Elaine just up and gone right now. That just leaving me wondering, why do they change that? It makes no sense why they would change something like that when, she's technically still around. So, we'll see where that goes. We'll see how, A1 Pictures handles that event with Elaine. But, yeah, it was a pretty decent episode overall, besides of certain glaring concerns with the Escanor stuff or music and all that. But that's about it. So, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And I love you guys. If you want to get notified for whenever I upload a video, please click the bell icon down below. And with that, Chibi out.